If you spend any amount of time following League of Legends, you've probably seen everyone and their mothers freaking out about Teamfight Tactics over the last few days. Your YouTube feed flooded and a torrent of tweets on your Twitter timeline. But if the only experience you've had personally with the game is maybe watching a commentary or two on YouTube, you may not know, why is this a big deal? Well, today I'm going to try and explain it for you because it can be tough to get what all this hype is about, especially if you have not played the game yourself. But if you dig deep down, underneath all this spam, there's actually something really interesting going on and some well-deserved hype, the likes of which we haven't seen since around the turn of the last century. If we rewind the clock back to the year 2003, we can go back to an interesting age of PC gaming when the RTS genre was still king. Here, a year before Blizzard released World of Warcraft, everyone was playing Warcraft 3 alongside a recent expansion for it called the Frozen Throne. The interesting thing though was people weren't playing Warcraft 3 itself, they were just using it to play a custom map that a few players invented called Defense of the Ancients, or DotA. DotA quickly became a big deal, and now of course more than 15 years after its emergence, Dota-style games, or what are now often referred to as MOBAs, have conquered the video game industry. A multitude of titles have sprung up from this single mod, some of which becoming the most popular PC games of all time. They're leading the way in the world of competitive gaming, revolutionizing how game companies monetize their products, and creating entire companies themselves who thrive off of a single release. But if you follow this channel, I guess I don't really have to explain to you how big these games can get. There's an interesting story though if you follow that journey from the original Dota mod in 2003 to today, and a number of interesting facts where that mod taught us a few things about the changing world of the video game industry and how it's adapting to the modern era. Things such as fan games, mods, or custom-built maps can sometimes become more successful than the original game they spawned from. Warcraft 3 is a fantastic game in its own right, but if you compare its sales figures to the player base of modern MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota 2, it looks like a failure by comparison. Video games have seen great fan-made inventions before then and since, but this was probably the first time an entire genre and idea was born inside another game. Possibly the more interesting lesson from the Dota story, though, was simply, any game can conquer all barriers put in front of it if it's fun enough. Remember, to even play a single game of Dota back in the early 2000s, you had a number of massive different hurdles ahead of you. You had to own Warcraft 3 first and foremost, plus you had to own the expansion The Frozen Throne. On top of that, don't forget you had to have a good enough computer and connection to run all of this, which was no guarantee in the world of dial-up internet. In addition to all of those things, you also had to go through the process of actually finding the right version of the mod that people were currently playing somewhere on the internet, correctly install it yourself, and then run it through the Warcraft 3 game, finding custom games to play alongside other players who had just done the same thing. And remember, these are all simply the hurdles you had to jump over to play the game. We haven't even broached the subject of learning to play well. That's a difficult task for someone who's picking up a completely new genre that had literally just been invented, and of course had no tutorial, no matchmaking, and not the nicest community out there. But in spite of all this, millions of people played Dota in those early years. By May of 2009, DotaAllStars.com, which was a former fan site for the mod, had 1.5 million registered users and received 1 million unique viewers every month. AAA developers would all but kill for that kind of fan base. The story of Dota taught us that fan-created ideas can be where we see the next big thing. Oftentimes, it's the custom map makers and modders of the world who hook the next generation on their fun ideas. More recently, that's happened with Battle Royale games, where the Battle Royale genre can trace its roots to fan-made Hunger Games servers of Minecraft and the similarly styled mod of DayZ. As we keep moving forward, it wouldn't surprise me if this continues happening and we see more custom game modes and fan ideas that turn into multi-billion-dollar genres, which I think it's happening again. Back in January of 2019, just this year, a mod for Dota 2 came out called Dota Auto Chess. The idea and design for this game draws inspiration from Mahjong, both being games that are played in a free-for-all format with multiple players who try and build their own win conditions while also sabotaging others. The games are particularly interesting because they seem to have a very healthy and surprisingly balanced mixture of a lot of skill expression with a little bit of luck thrown in for good measure. It's only been 6 months since its release, of course, but this mod has already had somewhat similar success to what we saw with early Defense of the Ancients mods, and it's already spreading like wildfire. There's a second full-fledged auto chess game available for Steam and mobile platforms called DotA Underlords, and recently the beta for Riot Games' take on the genre named Teamfight Tactics just went live earlier this week. Now, the name auto chess may throw people off a bit since it looks like you play on a chessboard, and I just made a mahjong comparison to further emphasize the board game connection, but auto chess really resembles more of a card game than anything else. You're given options for characters that you have to then pick and choose from, placing on a board, aiming to gain tempo, create synergies, and work your way through opponents' armies to eventually attack their face. This kind of gameplay is much more similar to something like Hearthstone than actual chess itself, but auto chess does something really interesting with these basic card game mechanics. See, in a traditional card game, how the gameplay works in its most basic form is you pick a strategy beforehand, create a deck that synergizes with it, and then you play around the RNG or randomness of what you draw. The interesting part of the gameplay is how you'll play around the RNG of your draws and the decisions you'll have to make because of it, while also anticipating your opponent, their strategies, and how their game unfolds compared to yours. Auto chess games are interesting because they take that basic idea but turn it upside down. While card games are about having a preconceived strategy that you're going for no matter what, auto chess games start off completely fresh with nothing pre-planned, then you're given a number of options or draws similar to a card game, but you can choose to take whatever you want, adjusting your strategy as the game goes on. So as an example, a Hearthstone game may consist of you deciding beforehand that you're going aggro hunter and you're just going to go face, and that's your strategy from start to finish. You may have to choose between which card you play on what turn or how you're going to deal with obstacles that your opponent throws in your way, but you're always an aggro hunter. That's your deck. Contrast that with the auto chess game Teamfight Tactics. Here you may be given some early knight cards that you choose to build a front line around while sticking a Graves in the back line to potentially go gunslinger for your DPS. You do well in the early game, but then suddenly you're given some sorcerer cards, so you're thinking, wait, I'll go sorcerer DPS for my back line and plan on just going 6 sorcerer characters in the late game, hoping to snag Aurelian Soul later on, who's a really broken card at the time of making this video. But then you change your mind because boom, you're just given a ton of elementalists, so you're playing them instead of your sorcerers, so you get this sick Daisy summon. She's a super strong tank that you get just for having 3 elementalists on the board, so you're hyped, but then all of a sudden you don't care about those elementalists nearly as much as you care about this Draven you just grabbed, because he's a great unit and you got really lucky getting him early on in the match. So now you're focused on this Darius Draven Imperial unit synergy where Darius is the front line, Draven is the back line. You keep the elementalist because you have the room, but right now you just want Imperial guys, and boom, there's a Swain. Let's transition those Knight front lines into a Glacial front line for some CC. You get some sick characters, MF, Anivia. Before you know it, you win. Now, obviously, the difference in experience here between these two scenarios is pretty massive. You can take 100 pro players in the Hunter example, and with a few minor exceptions, there's a pretty obvious quote-unquote right play they should be making every single turn, and they're all gonna ultimately get the same exact result. But here in our auto chess game, you could give these specific draws to 100 different pros and they would all get 100 different results. At any point in the game, especially early on, you can take different routes without any of them really being wrong. I mean, maybe you want to go for a Garen Knight synergy early on and transition that into nobles, or maybe you want to go more sorcerers like we originally planned. They also pair well with the elementalists you got. You could go 3 elementalists, 3 sorcerers. Maybe you want to go phantoms or yordles or pirates or whatever. There's a million options out there for you, and you can choose whichever one you want. There isn't really a right decision. This means it's almost a bad idea to say beforehand, I'm going to go for this composition and I'm not doing anything else no matter what. You can certainly craft a strategy that hopes to trend in a direction, maybe go for sorcerers in case you get Aurelian Soul as a draw later on, but honestly, if you say beforehand, I'm just going to do a 6 Yordle composition, let's say, I'm only taking Yordles and I'm going to keep redrawing until I get them, If you do that, you're gonna lose. In fact, you're probably gonna be the first player eliminated. This whole idea is really interesting because it's almost a natural evolution of the direction that card games can go. Some of those limitations in traditional card games prevent you from having much skill expression at all. Oftentimes, a Hearthstone game between two equally skilled players isn't really won by who made more right decisions, but just who believed in the heart of the cards and got luckier. Auto chess games share similarities with card games, which is why so many Hearthstone players are playing them right now, but they have way more room for skillful players to show off how good they are. Having unlimited strategies before a start of a match and then just slowly adapting however you want to play the hands you're dealt is a really interesting take on an age-old idea, and that's why auto chess games are beginning to take over. The ironic thing here is Riot Games got their start as a video game company by taking the original DotA mod and then refining it into their own product, League of Legends. League has obviously succeeded at becoming the most popular MOBA style game out there because they were mostly able to streamline the experience, make it easier to play, easier to understand, and just a super fun game overall, and Riot eventually became this gigantic video game company off the backs of this one and only release of theirs. Now, the only other game they've made so far is Teamfight Tactics, which does the exact same thing, takes a DotA custom game, streamlines the experience, adds their own twists and ideas, and making it more accessible with huge potential to blow up. It is worth mentioning, if there's anything that Battle Royale games have taught us lately, it's that just because you're an early comer to some newly hyped emerging genre, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed success, and it's super possible that you let your flaws and issues with your product kill your game while competitors roar off ahead of you. But whether Teamfight Tactics leads this new genre of auto chess games, or maybe the original auto chess or Underlords or some new game ends up doing it, either way, this may end up being the next big thing, and in my opinion, it's completely deserving. The gameplay is deep and expressive, the strategies in playing effectively are unlike any other game you can currently play, and I can certainly see myself getting sucked into TFT for years and years to come. I highly suggest you guys check it out. If you're interested in Teamfight Tactics in particular, it's currently on the PBE for League of Legends at the moment, and it will be coming to the regular live servers any day now with patch 9.13. Ranked Teamfight Tactics comes out in patch 9.14, and I cannot wait to stomp all you guys on my way to Challenger. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching this video. I will see you in the next one, but until then, thank you very much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.